I had to avoid those Wendy's because of process.
Hi, everyone online. We're going to start in a second. It'll be great, great to see everyone. In the last couple of minutes before we get started, any good birding stories of late?
Hooded mercanser on Glenmere Lake.
Oh, great, great.
Actually,
I love those birds. Yeah, they're neat.
and I only was able to recognize it just because of
Oh,
the week
good.
before we had seen it.
Yeah. They're great little birds. Yeah. Anybody else? Any?
A lot of hawks coming around now, aren't there?
I believe so. Yes, I was out. I'm actually going to show some pictures of where I've been lately. And the last time I was out birding in Goshen, it was cold and windy, and didn't see too many things.
Saw a lot this weekend. I went up by Utica that way.
Mm-hmm.
The fields all along the way. I saw hawks.
Oh wow.
Just hit your mic.
Well, that's right. Was there someone online wanting to add something? I asked the question about it, whether you had any exciting birding stories of late. Any? Was someone trying to add something?
Snapping turtles.
Oh,
They're birds.
oh, okay. Oh, snapping turtles are out. Okay.
Big one.
Wow. Okay. Well, welcome. Welcome to our ongoing series, which is taking a broad look at wildlife we find in our area. Last semester in the fall, we had just focused on birds. Now we're doing a little bit of everything, and also then focusing in many weeks on their fossil history as well. So we looked at birds and eagles last class started off with where they come from. Next week, we'll be looking at reptiles, not only their fossil ancestors, but then the reptiles we find in our area. Today, I'd like to focus primarily on waterfowl, although we'll see where time takes us. Maybe we can branch out into a few more aquatic birds as well. Okay, you're here. Okay, wonderful. Good to see you. This is such a great time of year, as many of you have already been saying. And so by all means, get out to places near your home. But there have been so many wildlife organizations which offer like real communities where many of you I've been seeing on nature walks, and I know in the past I've noticed at one of the end of the meetings there's a group of 2 or 3 people that are talking and they get together. That one of the neat things is not only is it great to get out, but there are so many like-minded people, and so if whether here or through some of these organizations, this gives you a chance to connect to your people. Well, that would be great. Orange County Audubon has presentations, has field trips. There'll be a walk coming up on the April 1st at 6.5 Station. So we'll try to look at some of the migrating waterfowl that we see now. That the barred owls are nesting again, so hopefully we can to see them as well. Then there'll be more presentations. The Bashigal Area Association just had its Nature Watch training yesterday. If anyone's still interested in what I'm about to say, please let me know. I'll forward your name along. But what they do is starting the middle of April through the middle of June, on Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., there will be bird watchers with spotting scopes on the eagle's nest. And so if you're just taking a nature walk, but you happen to stop by, there'll be someone who invites you, hey, would you like to see, the bald eagles? And you kind of get to watch the eaglets grow up over the summer. It's kind of exciting. Like, ooh, I see them moving at the next nest now. Ooh, they're, practicing flapping their wings. So there's just so much going on. And there are so many great birding organizations around us. So today, I'd like to focus on the waterfowl, because in the migration in spring, this occurs in stages. And so there are certain birds which we've already seen start to migrate through. There are other birds, that especially the ones which are eating insects, we're not really expecting quite yet. And so, we've got a good couple months of time to watch these birds as they come through. Towards the end, or actually, what? Why don't I do a little aside here? This was unexpected. I didn't kind of expect to start here, but if you don't mind, I'd like to take a second. Here's a killdeer. All right. Now, the reason that I would like to start here is because I actually took a trip to the Everglades last week because I wanted to take a picture of our birds where they spend the rest of the year. Because I only think of them in um, when I see them here. So this could very well be not a Florida killdeer. This could be one that's going to spend the summer at the 6.5 station sanctuary like they did last summer, but it was just wintering there. So we don't get to, and forgive me, there's someone, I'm just going to mute. Um, there was a little background noise. So this could be one of our Orange County birds, but just in its winter grounds. And just here's something that I didn't know. I didn't know that great egrets have green on them. That was a brand new thing to me. So if you were to look at, I just put a video together last night. It's here somewhere. There. I had never seen that. I've been looking at great egrets, my entire life. They've got green on them. Why don't I know that? Because that's something that they have once they start breeding season. And I don't see them in breeding season. I usually see them in August after their breeding is over and they're spreading their territory out. And my point is that we get to see these birds for a narrow window. And it's exciting that they're coming from somewhere where many of them are going somewhere else. And so I'd like to kind of talk about, their life history, because not only are they migrating, but this is also the time that they've already formed pairs or they're starting to form pairs. So let's just kind of check in and see what they're doing. Now, when we talk about waterfowl, we split them into three big groups, the swans, the geese, and the ducks. All right, so I'm going to start bigger, and I'm sorry, mute one more person, just we're getting a little more background noise. So swans, they're the largest of them, although they're welcome, come on in. Although all of these groups have size variations in them. And one thing I'd like to point out to this as we start talking about romance coming up, notice that the males and females look an awful lot the same. And that correlates with a couple of things. One of the things it's going to correlate with is that they will tend to mate for life and that males and females will both raise the young together. Now, this isn't absolute, but it's often a good bet. If you're looking at, these waterfowl in general, and this applies to some other species as well, if the males and females look alike, then probably they mate for life. The geese do, the swans do, the ducks don't. All right, so we'll talk about the ducks. So some of these tie to uh, some of those traits which are coming up in breeding coming up. Now, most of the videos that I have are of mute swans. They're the ones which have been nesting nearby. They're the ones which we're most likely to see. And the way you recognize them is that nice orange bill, which will appear once they're a year old. So here we see the nice orange bill. That is a mute swan. But this is a good time of year to just give every bird a second look. Like a bird watcher told that to me, where they said, you just look at every bird. All right, because there are moments where you think you know what you're looking at. Oh, it's a bunch of red-winged blackbirds. Oh, it's a bunch of this. It's a bunch of this. And then you look at the group and all of a sudden, no, wait, there's something else in there. So for example, if you're at the Bashakil, as I was about 2 years ago at this time, I saw there are mute swans. I've seen mute swans a lot. And then, no, just take a closer look and you realize, look at the beak, it's black. All right, so the mute swan, that is an introduced species. The tundra swan, that's one of our native ones. So if you see a swan, it is most likely a mute swan with the orange beak. But especially, during early migration, give every bird a second look. And with the swans, check out the beak. You might see a tundra swan as it comes through. They also typically have a yellow patch near the base of the bill as well. All right. So notice the black bill in the feet. All right. Here's a couple of pictures there from these tundra swans. So that's exciting. Now there is a larger a species called a trumpeter swan, which is probably not going to be seen in our area. Possible, all right, but unlikely. You'd be more likely to see it elsewhere. This is from the Great Lakes area, and this was an area where they were actually raising them to release them back into the wild. But also notice, should you see one of these swans, also notice the black bill, which would distinguish it from the mute swans. Okay. Well, we're almost at the time of the year where individuals are pairing up, and at 6.5 Station, there is a pair already there. We've had between 1 or 2 pairs in the past, and so probably a pair from last year has returned. Now, here you can see the mature adults with the orange bill, and this is at the end of the summer with the the cygnets, which they raised that year. You could tell that their bills were not quite orange yet. They mate for life, and they can, live for 20 years. So this is a bit of a commitment on their part. In captivity, they've been known to live a little bit longer. And although they typically mate for life with a lot of these birds, even when you say that if a mate dies, it is possible that they could pair up again. If they were unsuccessful in raising young in a given year, it's possible that they would separate and find other individuals. I've seen a lot of mute swans, and while I love these birds, not necessarily, like one, that like, oh, I saw a mute swan today. But once again, if you look at every bird every now and then, you'll see like, ooh, what's it doing? And you realize, ooh, it's courting. So even birds that you've seen before, you might catch them doing interesting things. They're called mute swans, but they're not mute, although a lot of their sound is not a melodious, song. It's more hissing and grunting. If they're going to perform courtship behaviors, it can last for an hour. A lot of it involves mutual preening, all right? And the preening then becomes synchronous as they increase contact with each other. And not only does that happen the first time, but with a lot of birds that pair for life, they will still do some of these courtship behaviors, and it's thought that this just kind of cements their relationship here. And so this will kind of be the quick overview. I have a YouTube channel, so if any of these videos you say, oh, I'd like to see that again, be happy to get back to it. My YouTube channel is at Dr. Jan 41, DRJAHN 41, so you can find all of these videos there. Yes, you had a question. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, is it to keep track of the local population of like cygnets themselves surviving and breeding too, or are they eating?
So that's a great question. So as far as keeping track, I all of the Audubon Society watches our wetlands, and I'm kind of a steward at the one in Goshen. So I try to like what's happening this year compared to the past couple of years. Orange County Audubon does yearly water bird counts. I know the Bashkaleria Association does a waterfowl count. So people are counting, but the way that people count eagles and say like, oh, this eagle nest, like the eagle nest in this area, they have numbers, and the DEC doesn't keep track of how many eaglets fledge each year from each. I don't know personally of anyone who does that for mute swans. I'm going to throw the question to Jim Van Gelder, president of the Orange County Audubon Society.
I really don't know as far as mute swans, whether they're. I think it's probably pretty stable.
Mm-hmm.
Continues on along.
One of the things I was getting to. Okay, so as far as populations, there are certainly ups and downs. So let me kind of show you a normal year and then consider last year, which was not a normal year as far as our cygnets. So 2 years ago, there were 2 pairs of mute swans at 6.5 Station, only one of which, they both had nests, but only one of which had cygnets, which resulted. And there were 4 at least from the first moments we saw them. And then all through summer, you could see the four, and the four became adults and fledged. All right, so that's a good number. And, another reason to maybe visit the same wetland, whether it be the Eagles for Nature Watch or 6.5 Station. That's another funny thing. You say like, oh, right, look how much the cygnets have grown in the, week or two since I've seen them last, where you can just watch them getting bigger and bigger. All right, so all birds are about adult size when they fledge, when they develop the ability to fly. Unlike mammals, like teenagers are still kind of growing. Birds aren't like that. They're kind of, adult size. But if you look at these mute swans, the immatures don't have the bright orange bills, and they can still have more of a mottled coloration here. As you saw in the song, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the song. Oh, wait, yeah. Last year, there were 6 cygnets that started the year. And I have the young, all 6 of them in another video. But the numbers kept dropping. And if you remember, while last year started really, really wet, by the middle of the summer, it was really, really dry. Most places were drying up. So this area, this was water 2 years ago. All right, and you would know it's a field. So these swans, they just have less habitat. That's probably, different plants for them to eat, maybe rougher, not as soft, but probably more susceptible to predators. Obviously, one of the things that waterfowl can do is swim and evade, coyotes and foxes and the like. But here, this is what the wetland looked like. Much more difficult to walk. These are where Canada geese had been walking. And if you look at birds, most animals don't sweat the way we do to cool down. All right, most animals keep their mouths open. So I'm sure you've noticed that with your dog, all right, where you would just sweat. They just sit there and pant. Birds are like that as well. So if you look at birds on a hot day, you'll often see red-winged blackbirds or hawks with their mouths open. And so by the end of the year, when I made this song, there were 2 cygnets, but then after this, there was only 1. So of the 6, only 1 we know fledged. So as far as your question on the population, obviously there's a lot of variables which would play in. So we have swans in our area. Okay, we also have geese. And we have a couple of kinds of geese. One kind we had over the winter briefly, not as much as we had in the past couple of years, is a snow goose. So notice this goose, this goose looks all white like a swan, all right, but it's much smaller. It's about the size of the Canada goose, white, although you can notice the black wingtips. There is another phase which is a little more bluish. But if you've seen these, they're just gorgeous to see them, flocking and changing directions. And in Unionville, there are a couple of trails like the Liberty Loop Trail and the Winding Waters Trail. And that's, perhaps the best place to see snow geese. Although I have seen them here. One of the gentlemen who came to our talks said he saw them here in Middletown, so that when flocks move, they can kind of check out this wetland for a while. So snow geese are here, but only in the winter because they are breeding in the Arctic. So that's I've mentioned this before, just one of the lessons that took me a long time to learn, is that it's great to go birding at different times of year, because if you don't see snow geese in winter, you're not going to see them. All right. So, even though you say, I'll wait for the warmer months to come, you would have missed many by this time. This is near Allentown, Pennsylvania. They really do like they really like the cornfields, there. So females often return to the site where they hatched in order to nest, and nests can be reused over multiple years. So when we see, say, multiple pairs of, say, mute swans or geese or many birds at a site, they might be related because, yes, you have that couple that's coming back to the same site year after the year, but some of the other ones coming back they might, be their offspring, their children or their grandchildren coming back to where they had nested. And that's when I'll talk about wood ducks in a few minutes. Here's that other phase of the snow goose. Now, snow geese, we have probably missed our opportunity to see them. There are exceptions. There was a snow goose that you could see during spring a couple of years ago, but it had clearly damaged its wing and wasn't able to fly with its group. And late fall last year, there was a single snow goose in Goshen for a while. So, birds can always, have, a surprise in them. But snow geese are winter birds, and they have probably migrated on. So Orange County is important to them, all right, but just not for breeding. All right, this is where they spend their winters, and now they are breeding north of us. We probably won't see brants here, although the lower brant, once again, was seen at the Liberty Loop on the Jersey border. So this looks like a Canada goose, but it's a bit smaller. And waterfowl have preferences. Some like deeper water, some like shallower water, some are more commonly found in salt water. You would be more likely to find a brant if you were going closer to the ocean. So some of that, this is from Orange County, but some of the pictures you saw, they were from the base of the Statue of Liberty there, where the water is more brackish. And so, as with many things, if you're going to go out bird watching and you say, I'd like to see something new, maybe you try another habitat where, I'm going to go into a forest with a lot of pine trees because I'm going to see different warblers there potentially than I would see if I went to more of a deciduous forest. And waterfowl like that, if you go to deeper water, say maybe closer to the ocean, you might, find different types of waterfowl there than you would otherwise see. And then we have Canada geese. I won't talk about them too much, although just in all fairness, there was a time where all birds numbers were sharply declining. Canada geese being among them. They were not threatened, but it looked as if they were going in that direction. And one of the reasons is that you could just kind of shoot anything at any time. And just the passenger pigeon was estimated to be the most abundant bird in North America. The most abundant bird, the flocks of them would just blot out the sun, and they were completely gone. And so when, we think like, oh, Canada geese, they could certainly never disappear. Well, certainly if birds like the passenger pigeon could be wiped out, then, this could potentially affect any bird. And there were many birds which are, common enough today, like wood ducks and snowy egrets and roseate spoonbills, that they were of concern. And so, the laws which protected them, and then the Audubon Society and other bird groups which went out to, to really raise awareness. The Audubon Society leads a Christmas bird count. And this is an old tradition, but the older tradition was to do a side hunt where you'd have contests. If we were doing a side hunt, we would all just go out and shoot everything that we could. And it wasn't with the intent to eat it. It was just having a contest, and whoever shot the most things at the end of the day was the winner. But obviously this then, was one of the factors causing bird numbers to drop. And it was the original Audubon Society members one of the individuals who would become one of the first officers, who put together, hey, instead, why don't we just go on with our binoculars and later cameras and count the birds? And so, Audubon Society still continues that tradition today. And believe it or not, New York State didn't have many Canada geese. They were almost wiped out from New York State because of this. So as much as we might see them and feel that, they're almost a nuisance at some point, that's almost a good sign. And, it's a good sign that bald eagles have, come back to the point where they're taken off of the endangered species list. Jim has a question, just in the background. They can also be active at night, as you can see in some of these videos. Jim, you had a point.
Is there any consensus on what the trigger was for them to stop migrating? That's why they're, the ones that the numbers that we have here are not migratory Canada geese, right? They're
right. So
or they might drift south.
that,
You're
that,
right, Canada.
yeah, one of the, the things is we rely on you, on all of us. Like, we're all bird watchers. We are all scientifically studying the world, and it's changing. All right. So there are so many things with like red-bellied woodpeckers that used to be more of a southern species. All right. Black vultures used to be more of a southern species. Lately, we've been seeing little blue herons in our area more. That's unusual. That was more of a Florida bird. We're watching changes. And your point earlier, it used to be that Canada geese weren't here in winter. All right, it was just too cold. And then all of a sudden there were some. And then there were some more. And then that just became standard that while many Canada geese migrated, others just didn't. And that was, within recent decades. So the world is changing. Clearly, climate change is having more of a warming trend. I think I have heard just as, the population grew, there's less and less forests, more and more ones which are giving the grass that they might feed on. But the question, I'm not quite sure why we're seeing this.
I
And
don't have
and
any, except maybe lawns.
Yeah.
And climate change hadn't occurred to me, but that might be part of it too.
yeah, and I'm trying to think whether there might be like as there were fewer and fewer like forests where the certain predators like foxes and coyotes or like
There's more coyotes.
but once again, like so many observations come from, I've been seeing this at my feeder, et cetera. So, if you're coming out and helping us out with bird counts or looking at your bird feeder, the world is changing and we're not quite sure where it's going. So we really value your input. Did you have a quick point?
I live in Monroe, and there's a lot of these swans over the past few years, right down
Mm-hmm,
on the north.
mm-hmm,
We have a lot of red belly
mm-hmm,
around us.
mm-hmm.
But I was wondering, did any have any thoughts on loons starting to winter around here as opposed to further north?
I have usually only seen them during migration, but every now and then I've heard them. And once I remember I was kayaking on Lake Wallenpaupack, which is Pennsylvania, not too far from here. All of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, like that's on my bird like tape. Like, yeah, I'm old, I have a bird tape. Of like the bird calls to learn. Loons, like I'd never heard that because that's something they breed north of here. But I'm hearing loons call, but they shouldn't be calling here. They should be calling in New Hampshire. So to your point, the world is changing. So yeah.
A group of about 20 that were spent this summer on the Ashoka.
Ooh, okay.
Including the Pacific. Actually,
Oh, wow.
the Pacific and I believe the red river that just stay there.
Oh wow.
But they're like young, they're not breeding. They're
Mhm.
young, they're young guys.
Mhm.
Learning them as to hang.
Interesting. We had a rogue snow goose with us last fall. I wasn't quite sure why it was there or what its story was. So as far as the geese and the swans go, there's a variety to see here, but the majority of the waterfowl we have in our area are the ducks. So if we're going to consider ducks, in general, I think a good question to ask is to dabble or to dive. All right, if you're not familiar with the question, how do you feed? A lot of ducks dabble in that they simply upend themselves, as you see here. So their butts are in their air, and they're just close enough to the shore that their necks are reaching the aquatic vegetation there. And so if you were to watch ducks, just maybe how are they feeding? And you're like, okay, these are dabbling ducks. All right. And so now you've kind of split your ducks in half. We'll get into the different groups. But you're like, aha, I'm looking at a dabbling duck. And there's a bunch of those which we will go through. But then there are ducks which do something different. They'll do this. They dive. All right. Now, we don't see as many of them in this area because they tend to like deeper water. They're often a little closer to the ocean. If you visit the Great Lakes, up north, you'll see more of them. But they are migrating through. These were in Goshen, two kinds of them we saw on our last bird walk here. So these are the diving ducks. So as I go through this, that's a good first question to ask about the ducks. Is it dabbling or diving? And that'll then narrow narrow that down. Okay. So let's start with the ones which we're likely to see throughout the year, and then we'll get to some migrating ones. We see the mallard. Now, all right, mallard, we don't have to spend too much time on these because I'm sure, we've all seen mallards. But you know, their heads are impressive. Like if it wasn't for the fact that they were so common, seeing the bright green of a mallard head, I think that would, you know, that would be something we would remember more. So just a quick thought on why do they have green heads? Well, only the males do. And once again, I'm not quite sure why this is, but this then, wait a minute, the males look different from the females, which now makes me think that the males are not going to help with the raising of the young. And with the ducks, that's pretty much true. By the time the youngs hatch, the males are gone. The males may guard the nest while the female is sitting on the eggs and help defend it. But in general, it's the females only who are raising the young. And ducks are what we call seasonally monogamous, although I may have to put monogamous in quotes. We'll get to that. So they'll have a partner for this year, but at the end of this year, they separate and they'll never see each other again, most likely. And then they'll get, I'm sorry, I was looking at the picture. And then they'll have another mate next year. So once again, geese and swans, males and females look alike. And with them and also with some other birds, that seems to correlate with they're going to mate for life and the males are going to help raise the young. Ducks, the males typically look different from the females. Not always true, but most of the time. But that's the case. All right. But getting back to why do they have green heads? It's not a pigment. So these birds are pigmented. There's a yellow pigment in the feathers. If you were to grind up the feathers, the powder looks yellow. There's an orange pigment in the feathers. If they grind up the feathers look orange or red or whatever. That's not true in birds of greens and blues. All right, there aren't green and blue pigments. Round up green feathers look brown. Round up blue feathers look brown. So green and blue are what we call structural pigments. It's the way that the microscopic arrangement of cells and the bags of pigments inside the cells are arranged that refract light in a certain way. Probably don't want to get into this, but just if you wanted a little more of an explanation, if you look at a soap bubble or an oil slick, all of a sudden you might see like these iridescent colors and you say like, ooh, does oil have like shiny green? No, it doesn't. It's black. But if you refract, if you've got like a little bubble and the top part of the bubble is refracting light rays here, and the bottom of the bubble reflects light waves, and they interfere with each other, you start to see colors which weren't originally there. And so green and blue are structural pigments. So that's part of the explanation as to why there are green heads. I'm just checking. The second part of the explanation is testosterone turns on the genes which change the structure of the feathers. So birds use estrogen and testosterone just as we do. And the way these hormones work in humans and as well as in birds, estrogen binds to a receptor, it goes inside a cell and sticks to DNA. Testosterone binds a receptor, goes into a cell and sticks to DNA and turns on genes. So there were genes that were there, but they were off. But now that estrogen is there, the genes are on. Now that testosterone is there, the genes are on. So both male and female mallard ducks have genes to make green feathers. But it's the testosterone which goes into the cells and sticks to the genes and turns them on, which is why this would be expressed in males. You had a question?
Yeah, on the green, is that all green pigment or just the iridescent ones like that?
No, I think that's true of parrots too. Like I don't think you can extract. So like there were names of pigments. So carotenoid pigments are like the yellows and the reds. The owls can have brown pigments derived from bile. I forget their. I'll think of their name, but that has a name. Melanin is black and gray. But if you ask, what's the green pigment? That's not a word. There's not a green molecule. It's just the way that the molecules are arranged.
Like parrot that's green, it's not plus a yellow pigment, it's a blue structure.
It would be right. The way that there's bags of pigments called melanophores inside the cells, and then the way that the cells are arranged, you have light rays bouncing off, and as they bounce away, they're interfering with each other, and now you see different wavelengths than you otherwise would. But that's why, like with bluebirds, I remember when we went out with Christian Cooper on that bird walk the summer the author came out with the Oak Society. It was a bright sunny day, and the bluebirds were just gorgeous, brilliant blue. But it was sunny. Like if you go out on a cloudy day, bluebirds just not going to impress you as much. It's really the light bouncing off of them which is producing. Um, so mallards, and as I do the highlights, I've got more about courtship. Obviously, courtship. What I'm going to say of mallards is true for most ducks, but mallards just take it to like the another degree. So just a whole bunch of things here. Females are looking at the mallards, all right, and it's the coloration which kind of indicates overall health. All right, so you can do experiments where ducks aren't as well nourished, or you could just do an experiment where you mess up the feathers a little bit or dull them. Females kind of shun them. All right, so that's one of the things happening in breeding season. Why are male cardinals red? Why are Baltimore Orioles orange? Because they're essentially showing the females, hey, would you like to be my mate? Look how healthy I am. The females are looking at their color, all right? And they say, you don't look so healthy. This other one looks healthier. That's something that's weighing into their option. And so nutrition, especially at the time of courtship when it starts, when they're making those green pigments, that matters. That's going to affect their mating success. Okay, so there are actually, some experiments, which, show what it is specifically that the females are looking for. As males kind of approach females, I'll have some video of that. They'll be friendlier to males, which are, quote, higher ranking, and you can determine higher ranking that they've already like chosen, mated before, and they're more aggressive and will resist the males that don't. All right, so as we look here somewhere, I actually have some of the courtship. Okay, did I miss already while I was talking? Oh, okay, no, I'm sorry. There's somewhere here I'll find that I have some mallards actually performing some courtship. Now, if we were to get into mallards and just mating, ducks are unusual in that the males still have a penis. So just kind of going back, before there were reptiles, there were no organs known as the penis or the clitoris. It was the first reptiles that invented that. And it was passed on then to modern reptiles, modern mammals, and modern birds. All right, so the group that we call the amniotes reproduced differently. Most birds, however, said, you know what? We want to fly and be aerodynamic. We're going to make some sacrifices. And one of the things that got sacrificed is most bird males do not have a penis to mate. They simply push their cloacas together. Waterfowl still retain this older feature. And actually waterfowl, if you look at the family tree of birds, they are a little closer to the base. So that's a little interesting. Mallard mating gets a little more interesting in that both the penis and the vagina are coiled, making mating difficult. Now, why that would occur, we could get into lots of ideas. But one of the things, mallard males will mate with almost anybody. I'll get back to that once we answer this question.
Oh, my, thank you.
Hi.
Is there color blindness involved with birds? I know that's a certain.
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm sure there is, because it's a mutation in a gene and mutations happen. Birds are tough, and I have to be very careful because I sometimes forget this. Birds see the world differently than we do. All right, they are not only seeing, red and yellow and blue, they also see ultraviolet. So you might look at a bird that has a boring plumage. It doesn't have a boring plumage. You just can't see the coloration. So I often say, ooh, why does a bird look like that? I'll tell you why the bird looks like that. And I'm wrong, because the bird isn't doing it for me. The bird's not saying, ooh, let me look a certain way for you, the bird watcher. It's trying to attract a mate. It's trying to deter predators, all of whom see color differently. And so, yes, I'm sure that mutations occasionally cause color blindness in birds. But once again, we have to be careful because they also then, pick up the UV spectrum. Good question.
Anybody who's seen this, but on our dock last year in Row, and there was a male mallard that fell in love with my wife. Every time she went down there and sat, jump up on the dock, walk by and stand there and just stare at it. This went for like 2 weeks. And then
Okay.
I've never seen that.
Knowing what I'm about to say, that's a really, I'm not quite sure. I want to complete my next sentence based on that. So maybe it was the idea of getting food or
I don't know, we didn't feed.
oh, okay. But what the sentence was going to be, so this is not in response to what you just said. Interspecific hybridization happens, all right, and sometimes it's a concern, like golden wing warblers mating with blue wing warblers. That's a concern as golden wing warbler populations drop. You know, this happens that we say, aha, you're a species, you shouldn't reproduce together. But in nature, you know, the birds, they do, you know, and sometimes they make offspring. Mallards, they will hybridize with more different species of waterfowl than, you know, almost any other that I know of. So black ducks, northern pintails, canvas ducks, mottled ducks, green-winged teals, Pacific black ducks, Gadwall cinnamon teals. These are the ones that they have successfully, you know, have offspring with. The ones they just mate with and don't have offspring is probably a bigger number. So when I said, you know, ducks are monogamous seasonally, male ducks, especially mallards, they will leave their partner and try to mate with other females. But we often see in birds that, you know, these birds which quote mate for life, if you were to do DNA test of a nest, very often of mixed parentage. And so you know, here the male is off mating with others. Well, the female laid eggs from multiple males. So while he was away, then perhaps she was mating with someone else as well. So, you know, there's a little bit more going on in um, you know, the private lives of ducks. Yes.
What's the average number of ducklings that are paired with parents?
Ooh, that would vary from species to species, and I hope I have this here. Otherwise, and I apologize. I make so many videos that every now and then I realize, why isn't that one in the pile where I think it should be? So let me just wood ducks. That's actually coming up in this next duck. I think it does vary from species to species. Like with the mute swans, I think 2 to 6 is common. Ducks, it's more than that, but I think, you know, a decent range, and, you know, success can vary from year to year. And there's another term. I'm sorry, I know I made a video on this and I didn't see it in my pile, so maybe, no. I'll think of it. There we go. All right, okay. So wood ducks. Once again, wood ducks. Oh, what a beautifully patterned head. Once again, the male. All right, so here we are in the ducks. The males are looking different than the females. And one of the reasons is, you know, right around this time, you can go to a pond, you can see a dozen species of ducks. It's breeding season. Some of them have already chosen partners, but some of them are still in the process of choosing. So, you know, and just to be blunt, who do you have sex with? I mean, that sounds weird because with humans, only humans look like humans. So if you're looking for a date and your potential date looks human, they are. There's like no other options. The Neanderthals are gone, Homo erectus is gone. So if they look human, they are. But there could be a dozen different species of duck on the same pond during breeding season. So how do females know which ones belong to me? So that's this coloration is so important, especially since these aren't songbirds, which are going to make all of the different vocalizations. So wood ducks, once again, you can see the color differentiation between the males and the females. The males looking, you know, quite striking there. Now, the females don't want to be as colorful. Why? Because why bother? But if you look here, look at all these baby wood ducks. All right, here. Did this female lay that many eggs? No. Where did they come from? So this is weird. Wood ducks are cavity nesters. All right, so how to make a nest, that's a tough thing, and a lot of nestlings get eaten by predators. So like, just how do you protect a nest from the hawks flying overhead and the foxes, etc. But if you can find a cavity, like a hole, that increases your probability. So that's a good thing. And some birds, they do. They're cavity nesters. They want to find a hole. Wood ducks are like that. That's why if you put wood ducks up near a wood duck boxes up near a wetland, that will increase wood duck success. All right, but the problem is, what happens if a female has laid her, the eggs that she feels like she can successfully raise in this nest cavity. And let's say she still feels she has a few more eggs in her. Well, she'll go to her neighbor's cavity and lay her eggs there for her neighbor to raise, and vice versa. All right, her neighbors are laying eggs in her cavity. So she is probably not the mother of all of those ducklings. There are lots of things which are known to affect this. Availability um, of suitable nest things are possible. It does get a little weird in that if females try to go back to where they were hatched when they make nests, this female could actually find herself at a pond with some of her daughters from previous years. All right, or and so it's possible as they lay their eggs in the nest of others, that it's not a horrible thing evolutionarily, because even if you're not raising your kids, you're raising your nieces or your daughter's kids or whatever. So that's complicating a little a bit here. Another thing that we could say is it's not as big a burden for a wood duck female as it would be for a songbird. Because when birds come out of eggs, they vary in how advanced they are, right? Wood ducks, they're pretty advanced, all right? They're pretty precocial, or altricial, I'm sorry, precocial is when you're not. When they're hatched, and here's how you can tell, because the cavities that they like to nest in can be 20 feet in the air. So when a wood duck hatches from an egg, on its first day of life, this little tiny duckling could get to the opening of the cavity, jump 20 feet, and then catch itself, and then start feeding itself. So, that's pretty independent for your first day of life. And they certainly can then feed themselves. So songbirds are different. The only way that baby songbirds get food is if the parents bring it to them. All right, so this female is not feeding the young. All right, so it's not quite as big a burden. That being said, I'm not trying to put her down. This is a burden because there are fewer female ducks in the wild than males. All right, males typically outnumber females. There's probably more than one reason for that. But one of them is this is probably hard work. It's probably exposing her to more predators. And so probably females face at least some level higher mortality because they are the only ones caring for the young. So wood ducks have come back. I've seen a couple in the area, and we'll see more. And some of them will nest here. But some of the birds won't. And so sticking with our dabbling ducks, pintails, you can see why they get their names. The males have these elongated tail feathers and these nice brown heads with a white stripe there. Females are a little duller. Once again, females are going to raise the young, so they want to blend in more with the marsh vegetation, not potentially stick out for predators as much. So pintails won't stay here. All right, so they're migrating through and will breed farther north. So this is a theme that I'll just maybe conclude with. If you're a bird, you need habitat in 3 places. You need habitat where you're going to breed, raise your young. You need habitat where you're going to spend your winter. But you need to get back and forth. So you need wetlands and places where you can feed all along. So all of these habitats are vital. If it's like a chain. If you break one of those, the bird's in trouble. So there are a number of birds whose numbers are declining, not necessarily because of what's happening in North America, but they're wintering in, let's say, Colombia. And if Colombia allows, the pet trade or is deforesting more, it's their winter grounds where their numbers are decreasing. But that affects the number which we will see in summer. So even though they did not spend their winter here and will not spend their summer here or breed here, Orange County is important for here. This is a layover where, they're flying thousands of miles. So they get, to rest a little bit and eat and gain more nourishment for the next leg of the journey. Black ducks are a little unusual in that both the males and the females have similar chocolate brown patterns. And these, many will migrate through, but these can stay all throughout the summer. And you can see them for much of the winter as well. Yes?
I noticed in this area, particularly huge
Yeah.
And, like there's a pond nearby that almost completely obscured, there's almost no open water around. And can you address that?
So I can definitely address that. I don't know if I can address it well. All right, so if you don't know, Phragmites is the really common tall reed that you typically see at the edges of wetlands. Sometimes running, you'll see a whole big section of it. There are Phragmites populations which are native and then introduced. The ones which we're seeing in our area spread almost entirely the introduced non-native kind. It's a problem. And I say that because the past couple summers, I spend hours at 6.5 cutting down Phragmites along the shore and going out in the center for just that reason, to try to cut back on them. But it's hard. It's not like, if this were cutting down, not that cutting weeds in your lawn is easy, but you got a road. Here, like I've got waders and I'm like up, between calf and thigh to mud, and I'm trying to do things. And it's grass. So you know what happens when you cut grass. It grows back. It's just 20-foot tall grass. You can now, if you wanted to do it better, we're talking chemicals, you're talking big fancy equipment, but like obviously now you're in mud. So like you need, mechanical devices which go through mud. So it should be dealt with. It can be dealt with, but it can't be dealt with easily. And just speaking from someone who wrestles with this, like.
Just look at the meadowlands.
Mhm. So do you want to speak to that?
No, I'm just saying, you
Okay.
see it,
Mhm.
just driving down the turnpike or something. Nothing, you don't see anything but fragments.
Mhm.
And if this is not dealt with either the volunteers like groups like yourself or government, doesn't this pose serious problem to migrating or even?
So it does, and I want to get back. I want to be happy today because there's so many talks where I'm not, but you're forcing me here. Like, so I'm just gonna say this. So I work really hard on the Phragmites, and at the end of the day, just little ego, I'm like, you know what? I think I held the wolf at bay, like a little proud of myself. And then I turn around, and the water chestnut is so much worse and getting worse so much faster. Same thing, it's worse. So Pegmites, I was like, I think I can actually manage this with a lot of effort. And then the water chestnut, I don't know if I can. So we humans, we're modifying habitats at just this crazy rate. Like even if you were to put great effort into this one invasive species, then there's the other one that just popped up. So I don't know what the answer is, but you're absolutely right. It's a severe problem. If you're looking at these dappling ducks, one of the things that you should try to focus is on relative size. All right, because there's a lot of different kinds, but you might say, ooh, like mallards and Canada geese. I know I know them. Ooh, this duck gets smaller than a mallard. All right, so our teals are small ducks, and that's perhaps one of the keys that will help you here. Breeding males have this nice cinnamon colored head with a green stripe. They have a little peach area behind, so very colorful. Females less so. All right, and for the same reasons as we've mentioned, there you can see the nice green winged teals. Actually, there's a blue winged teals in there as well. We'll get to them in a second. Green winged teals come in groups. All right, and so we see lots of groups here. All right, and it's springtime, and I love to look at them in springtime. And I shouldn't be, so judgy, but come fall, they're harder to identify. Like here, they just happen to spread their wings, and it was sunny, so you can see all the green there. But otherwise, can you see they all just kind of look brown? And by this point, the male mallards have lost the green of their heads, so they look brown. And so I'll bet you've seen them. All right, but in late summer, you just say, oh, it's a brown duck, and you just kind of maybe mix it in with the with the mallards. There was another teal, and we called them both teal, but they're actually not that closely related, called the blue-winged teals. And in summer, once again, the males have this big white crescent. So this was last summer here in Goshen. You could see them. All right. Just beautiful, beautiful. And I know there's another bird in there we'll get to in a second. But just getting back to look at every bird in that One of the things I've been doing lately is I see a flock of birds fly by and I'll just take pictures with the idea I'm gonna like freeze them and look because oh, it's a whole bunch of mallards. And I'll say, ooh, no, wait, look, see the blue wing? All right, like you could have 20 mallards, but up there's a blue wing teal. And I wouldn't have noticed unless I had, taken the time to either look or taken a picture and looked at it and more slowly. Another one of the smaller ducks, and this was actually, we saw this on our walk a couple weeks ago. There was a single widgeon at the 6.5 station. They're kind of hard to describe for me because they've got a lot going on. They have like a peach colored mohawk. They've got like a grayish brown of their face, but a brownish gray of their body. They've got peach here. They've got a bluish bill. All right, so they're a little harder, I think, to characterize than something that just has like an obvious pintail or something. But this is the American widgeon, right? And then, we see them at this time of year, but then we can see them in autumn as well. The last one of the dabbling ducks I'd like to point out has a much larger bill than typical. This is a northern shoveler. All right, so this time of the year, the males have this bright green head, easy to identify. In autumn, once again, they would be more brown ducks, but you would look for a bill that is much larger, longer, and wider than what you would see on a mallard. And this allows them to partition the food a little bit. Look, they're all eating in the same area, all right? But, one with the wider bill could maybe be going for mollusks like clams and crayfish, crayfish or arthropods a little differently, while the mergansers with the narrow bills could be going more for fish. All right, so, as we look at the bill shapes, that might be why you can find so many birds in the same area. Okay, so if you see a duck that's dabbling, there are a number of different birds that it could be. Some that might stay here all summer, like the mallards and the wood ducks. But then some, this is the time to see them. All right, if you get out in the next month, you'll see, the teals and the shovelers, etc. After that, you might not. This is from the past couple of weeks in Goshen. This is a ringneck duck. Now, can you see it does have a ring on its neck, but the light has to be perfect in order for you to see that it's a slightly, rufous brown for the black. So they're called ringneck ducks, but you really don't see the ring all that often. The white stripe on either end of their bills are probably the easier ways to recognize them. These are the males. The females you'll see in a second. If you see a big bunch of males like this, these probably have not chosen a mate yet. All right, so the males which have already paired up with females, they're probably traveling by themselves. And also it's common in ducks, once again, that the males outnumber the females. There's a couple reasons for that, but the burdens of raising all of the ducklings on their own probably just takes a toll on female numbers in a way that we don't see in the males. All right, and so here just once again with relative size, notice a little bit smaller than a mallard. Bill is a little bit smaller than that of a mallard. So I think sometimes that can help as well. I just want to show you, like here they are diving. Oh, and you could just see for a second, can you see the brownish red on the neck? All right, that's a harder feature to see. That's a female, all right, which you wouldn't necessarily pick out as much because a little duller in her coloration. Some of the diving ducks have white on their heads. So these are male and female buffleheads. These are smaller ducks, but as you'll see, they'll be diving soon. These will migrate through our area. Although last year, Croton Point had an Eagle Fest, and there were a bufflehead on the Hudson during winter. All right, and so as we hit different habitats, like what applies to the wetlands near your house versus what applies to the Hudson River, or if you go up to one of the Great Lakes, there might be birds that, aren't staying here all summer that nevertheless you do see on a Great Lake for part of the year. This duck is called a goldeneye, and you can see why. It has a yellowish eye, also has a greenish head. right? So that is another diving duck. Ruddy ducks can also be identified because they hold their tail feathers more erect most of the time, right? And so that is a diving duck, which we can see in our area. Males tend to have more of a rufous coloration here. So here you can see a ruddy duck diving in a second. Right. So once again, if we were looking far away, you might say, "Ooh, they're a little far. I can't get a good glimpse of those." But just that behavior, you're already thinking, "Oh, it's not one of the teals. It's not one of the dabbling ducks." Now I just have to root it out from the diving ducks. So that duck, which dove, is unusual to see around here. It likes more closer to the ocean. Although this is filmed at the Bashkill, so you never know which ones you might see. This is a canvasback. It has a reddish head. And there's a smaller duck called a redhead. Once again, not commonly seen here, but you can on occasion. And then we have some birds called mergansers, which have thin bills. Now, thin bills are easy to close quickly, which you're going to want to do if you're eating fish. Fish are so quick and like slippery that, big fat bills are probably better for grasping aquatic vegetation or a mollusk, whereas a narrow bill better for things which are swimming faster. We have the common merganser, a little bit bigger, and the males during breeding season have white undersides and a green head. And then hooded mergansers, which were at the 6.5 station a week ago, the males have this white patch on these feathers, which can be raised and lowered. Also having that thin bill, making them diving ducks. So these images in this video, this is from the ones which some of these we saw on our walk. Some of you were with me when we were seeing this here at 6.5. And notice that migration can occur over a period of time. See that there's still ice on the water. All right, so you'll be seeing especially more of the green-winged teals later in the season, but ring-necked ducks you'll see earlier in the season, pintails you'll see earlier in the season, etc. And every now and then you'll see something unusual. All right, so last year we were on a nature walk and we were at 6.5. I said, "Oh, there's a merganser." There was a bunch of mergansers, but you look close and you say, "Ooh, look, it's got like this tuft of feathers from the end, and it's got a red chest, not a white chest." Oh, that's a red-breasted merganser, which you don't expect to see. I went to the Great Lakes, to Lake Erie. A friend of mine lives there. And they're all over the place. And so if you go, certain places, oh, you're going to see the red-breasted merganser. But in this area, not so much. We're not close to the ocean. But once again, that idea of looking at every bird, every now and then you say like, oh, more mergansers, and like, oh wait, no, this is a different type of merganser. Okay. So this is exciting, all right, because there were birds which have just left us, like the snow geese, but there's a whole lot of birds which have spent their time in the Carolinas, in Virginia, in Florida, and they're on our way here. Some will stay with us all summer, but some are only going to be here, while they rest up for the next leg of their migration route. And so while there might be the temptation, I'm going to wait for the warmer weather to go birding, you're going to miss the shovelers and the blue-winged teals and the green-winged teals if you don't go soon. So this is a great time of year to go out and bird. And you see something this day, well, they're going to move on to their migration. 2 days later, you might see a completely different set of things which have decided to land and store up energy reserves for the next leg of their journey. So I wish you great luck in your birding, and this is an exciting time of year to come out. Thank you all for coming. I'll be happy to field any questions. Once again, we do have more events coming up. So there's April 1st, Tuesday. I'm trying to go to Goshen and do bird hikes there on the first Tuesday of every month at 4 o'clock. And then the second Sunday of every month at the Bashkill at 10 o'clock. So, we'll be hopefully checking out the Eagle's Nest there, but then there'll be other hikes elsewhere. But, if you can make any of those, you're most welcome. I know some of you already have. We have a few calendars left over. So if you know anyone who you think would appreciate a calendar, feel free to take one. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Numbers about the effects of birds on wild birds?
This is a year-to-year phenomenon. This year, the incidence is up, so it's kind of like what we know is what we're observing. And so it's not like this is what we predict, this is what's average. So I know the snow geese were getting bird flu. That was a problem in some of the populations. I don't know that anyone has like taken a big comprehensive view of bird populations. If anyone wants to make a comment, you're welcome to. So it's more of a concern than it's been in recent years. And just if anyone like wonders like, oh, bird flu, like what are we looking at? So here's my 30 seconds of what I know, which isn't wonderful. In 1918, there was this Spanish flu thing that appeared out of nowhere that killed over 40 million people. Devastated the world. Actually, I wouldn't be here because my grandfather had a wife who died in the Spanish flu epidemic. Without that, he wouldn't have married my grandmother, so I wouldn't be here. So, changed history. I'm not saying better or worse, but just fact that it changed history. And then it went away. So this horrible thing that spread over the world was just incredible, like more people dying in less time than even during the world wars. And then it was gone and left us with the idea like, where did it go? Will it come back? We don't know. Well, they did some studies on some corpses of people who had died in the tundra, and they were frozen in shallow graves. And they found some lung tissue, and they were able to find it and sequence it. And they said, ooh, it looks a lot like bird flu. All right. And so here's the thing, things might mutate. Everything mutates. Viruses mutate a lot. And as human population grows, now there's more and more people, there's more and more chickens, there's more and more birds. And as you start putting more and more birds in the presence of more and more people, and you have viruses which mutate, there's the fear. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but there's the fear that there's just the wrong random mutations, which means that a disease can jump a species from a bird into a person, and now you have a new disease that no human has any immunity to because no one's ever seen it before. And going back to the Spanish flu, the results can be devastating. So that's why it's such a concern. What would the effects be? Like, we don't know. But there's certainly reason for concern given historical precedent. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing that birds allow us to see such a great diversity of species compared to all of this, most other species?
Oh, yeah.
Animals?
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. And mammals often like tell different species like by smell. So there's lots of species of rodent, but it's not doing anything for me. But just like the beautiful colors and the courtship songs, you're absolutely right. Yeah, but what they're using to distinguish between them just adds to the beauty of the world in the way that we smelly mammals don't to the same degree. Because I mean, a lot of mammals come out at night, so like vision doesn't work, and it's just like, oh, you're not my member, you're my group. They're by smell, but that. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yes. As I said, I live in Monroe and I'm on Walton Lake, and a stone's throw away is Round Island Lake.
Mm-hmm.
We have tons of, well, black, I was too far away, but black and white, probably there's common mergansers or something.
Mm-hmm.
Huge flock of them there. We don't see a single one on Walton Lake, ever. It's weird. But they're always.
Is one deeper than the other?
Not by a lot.
Okay. Because with the diving ducks, that's a thing. A lot of the diving ducks are sometimes called sea ducks, that they like the deeper water and.
Preferably bar lake, shallow.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Throwing it out there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you so very much for coming. I will be talking about reptiles next week. Thank you, everyone at home. Does anybody have any questions at home?
Still get involved in the spotting thing because I missed it yesterday.
I get the same text that you do, and they do it throughout the season. Because even like the spotted salamanders, they go early, but like some of the other ones are later.
Yeah.
So for the next month or so. Oh, for the eagle speak.
Yeah, for the spot, I'd like to volunteer for it.
Oh,
I told
okay.
Jackie, and I just blew it. I didn't make it.
Okay. Why don't you send an email?
Base with her and.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Great one.
Hi. Sure.
For Tom,
Sure.
but you're doing reptiles next week.
Thank you. Well, we record them too, so if that's an option. And
I tried doing it during spring break,
Uh-huh.
and then I pressed like you can't do it through Zoom.
Uh-huh.